Right, okay, so just a quick overview on trigonometric graphs. Okay, first of all, question 13 here from the text and test book. A scientist claims that the size of a population of rabbits on a local hillside can be modelled by the equation n is equal to a plus b cos ct, where n is measured in thousands, and this is actually important, okay, that n is measured in thousands, and I'm just going to change the colour for this, okay. Okay, so n is measured in thousands and t is measured in months, and a, b, and c are constants. Using the graph of the function, find the values a, b, and c. Okay, so for starters, there's a couple of things you need to look at here. I need to look at the midway line, okay, because straight away that's going to give me a. All right, so the midway line here I've got from 40 to 10 is 30, so 15 either side. So I'm looking at a midway line here. Okay, so I'm looking at a midway line of 25. Remember, it's in thousands, so it's 25,000. Okay, be very, very careful with that, okay, with the y-axis in thousands. Okay, the next thing then is I need B, okay, which represents the amplitude. Okay, your regular cos graph, okay, so regular, goes from -1 to 1. Okay, this graph goes from 10 to 40. Okay, so if I'm looking at an amplitude here, okay, from -1 to 1 is 2 units. Okay, from 10 to 40 is 30 units. Okay, and it's actually not 10 to 40, sorry, it's 10,000 to 40,000. Okay, for B, okay, it's 15 times the amplitude. Okay, now remember it's in thousands, so it's actually 15,000 times the amplitude. Okay, C then is the period. Okay, so in this case, 1, and you can look at 1 full repeating. So if I look at the peak here is on the y-axis, it goes down and comes right back up to here. Okay, so in this case, the period is 12. On a regular cos graph, the period is 360 degrees. Okay, so remember, I can find the period here by 360 divided by 12. Okay, so it's cos of 30. Okay, or sorry, that's not actually a degrees, ignore the degrees. So it is cos 30t. Okay, which actually means that this graph here is 30 times tighter, 30 times more narrow than your 30 times more narrow than your regular cos of x graph. Okay, so if I'm to put that together, now you were asked just literally to write down A, B, and C. Okay, C is actually 30. Okay, if I was to write this down, okay, I have n is equal to A plus B cos ct. So this should be n is equal to, what did I say, 25,000 plus 15,000 cos 30t. Okay, that's the actual equation of this graph. And that's important because we do need to be able to find the equation of the graphs. Over a 3-year period, how many times will the population be exactly 25,000? So 25,000 is my midway line. So I actually already have it drawn in here. Okay, now this is only over 2 years. So to this point here, it is 2 years. Okay, but remember, it's periodical, so it's the exact same all the time. So 1 year is to here. Okay, so if I just do a dotted line, 1 year is to here. And in 1 year, it is 25,000 twice. So that means every year after that, or every 12-month cycle, because remember, it's periodical every 12 months, every 12-month cycle, there will be 2. So there's 2 in the second year, there'll be 2 in the third year. So over a 3-year period, the population will be exactly 25,000 6 times. Okay. From the graph, estimate, and this is the important point, it is an estimate, for how many months each year the population is below 17,500. Okay, so if I take, let's go for a green here, 17,000, and again, it is a rough estimate, so we're talking maybe here. Okay, so we're looking at from maybe month 4 to month 8, it's below, then it rises above the green line again. So I'm looking at only when it's below how many months each year. So I'm only looking for 1 year. And the answer I'm getting here is 4 to 8, so 4 months each year. Okay. And that is question 13. I think the most important bit there was part I, so make sure you go over that and that you can do it. Okay. Going down into the exam questions, the weekly revenue produced by a company manufacturing air conditioning units is seasonal. Okay, the revenue can be approximated by this function. And you'll see these quite a lot, where T is the number of weeks measured from the beginning of July, is in radians. Find the approximate revenue produced 20 weeks after the beginning of July. So this is simply just saying T is equal to 20. Okay, you can always change that pi. I would always change pi to be 180. Okay, times T, which is 20 plus 37500. Remember that pi is equal to 180, and especially for doing calculator calculations, I think it's certainly easier to use 180 rather than the radians. So 22,500 times cos times 180 over 26 multiplied by 20 plus 37500. I'm hoping that I put this into my calculator correctly. The cost to the nearest euro, and be careful with rounding here, is 20,659. Okay, I'm just going to, sorry, technical difficulties. Okay, right. The next part of this says, find the two values of the time within the first 52 weeks. So I'm only looking, and this is important because it's within the first period or within the first full cycle, when the revenue is approximately 26,250. So this time I have 26,250 is equal to, I just have to go back up to get my function, 22,500 costs. I'm going to use 180 over 26. I don't know my time. 180 over 26t plus 37,500. Okay. And the very first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to subtract the 37, so minus 37,500 from both sides. Okay, so that will get me 26,250 minus 37,500. That will leave me with 11,250 euro is equal to 22,500 costs 180. So we're looking for T in this case. Okay, then I'm going to divide both sides by 22,500. Okay, because I want to get costs on its own. 22,500 is multiplied by costs, so divide by it. I'm sorry, that should be minus. So minus 11,250 divided by 22,500. will give me minus a half is equal to cos 180 over 26t. Okay, now at this point you can bring radians back in here if you want. Okay, apologies in the glitch in the video. We had a few technical difficulties and I'm back. Okay, so we have here that minus a half is equal to cos 180 over 26t. So ultimately I'm looking for t. Now, we've actually done this before. You have previously done this at Junior Cert. To remove a cos from this side, I say cos inverse minus a half is equal to 180 over 26t. Okay, now remembering that your minus a half means that it's cos in the second or the third quadrants, because that is where cos is negative. So when I'm looking at this, either, and the preferable way would be to look at your table, okay? Plus, if you're going to use radians here, your table is certainly going to be much easier. Okay, but first of all, if you're going to use your calculator, ignore the minus sign. So what you would put into your calculator is simply cos inverse of 1/2. Okay, that will give you your reference angle, which is 60 degrees. Okay, now, so I'm actually going to do this question out in both degrees and radians. Okay, because sometimes, and in this question you are not specifically asked, okay, you're just asked for t. Sometimes you are specifically asked it in radians or degrees. So on this side, I'm going to look at degrees, and on this side I'll look at radians. Okay, so my reference angle here is 60 degrees. Okay, now it's 60 degrees in the second quadrant, so it's 60 degrees from 180, so which would be 120. And then in the third quadrant, it is 180 plus 60, so that would be 240 degrees. Okay, so if I'm working with degrees, the 2 degrees I have is 120 degrees is equal to 180 over 26t. And I have 240 degrees is equal to 180 divided by 26t. Okay, if you're working with degrees, you have to have the 180 on top. You absolutely can't have pi, and you can't really use your calculator with pi on top either unless you change the mode to radians, which I don't recommend doing. Okay, so 120, if I want to rearrange this to find t, okay, okay, you all should be well able to do this. I'm going to multiply both sides by 26. Yeah, technology is not working well with me here. By 26. And I'm going to divide both sides by 180. Okay, so into my calculator I can say 26 times 120 divided by 180. And I will get 52 over 3 is equal to t. Okay, which is perfect. I'm not asked t in degrees or radians, so 52 over 3t. Using 180 gets me my answer. It always will. Same thing on this side. 240 multiplied by 26 divided by 180 to get t completely on its own. And I have 104 over 3 is equal to t. Okay. If you're asked to work in radians, and it actually won't make a difference for this question, if you're asked to work in radians, you simply look at your table of values in your log table. Okay, you go to cos of a half, okay, and you'll see that cos of a half in radians is pi over 3. Okay, so cos inverse of a half is equal to pi over 3. Okay, so is equal to pi over 3. All right, so that's pi over 3 in the, and remember that 180 degrees is pi. So we'd be talking about pi minus pi over 3, okay? And we would be talking about, and you can do that on your calculator, pi minus pi over 3, and that will give you 2 over 3 pi. And we'd be talking about pi plus pi over 3 as my two angles. Okay, so this is, say, the exact same as 120 degrees. And pi plus pi over 3 will be 4 over 3 pi, okay, which is 240 degrees. Okay, and I'm basing all of this on the exact same thing. I know it's in the second or the third quadrant. I know my reference angle is pi over 3. I know the 180 line here is always pi. Okay, so for it to be in the second quadrant, it would have to be pi plus, sorry, it would have to be pi minus the pi over 3. And for it to be in the third quadrant, it would have to be pi plus pi over 3. Okay? And then I would do the exact same as what I have here. I would have 2 over 3 pi is equal to, this would be if you didn't use the 180. So you still had pi on top over t. And I would have 4 over 3 is equal to pi over 26t. Okay, sorry, 4 over 3 pi. Okay, your pi's will actually cancel both sides and you will simply have 26 by 2 over 3, which is your 52 over 3. Okay, which we had before. Same. And your pi's again will cancel here because you'd have 4 pi times 26 over 3 times pi, if you want to do it that way. Pi's will cancel. 4 times 26 is 104 over 3, still equals t. Okay, so just if you're using radians, be slightly different. It is easier, I think, when possible, to turn it into degrees, and 9 times out of 10 you'll be able to turn it into degrees. The odd time that you're asked to work with radians, it's exactly the same as how you would work it with degrees. Your table will give you the reference angle. Okay, your table will give you the reference angle. You will then just say, find out what quadrants it's in. If it's in the second quadrant, pi minus the reference angle, same as 180 minus the reference angle. If it's in the third quadrant, it'll be pi plus the reference angle. Okay, exactly the same as it was 180 minus 60 and 180 plus 60. Okay. Okay, the next question. The approximate length of the day in Galway, measured in hours from sunrise to sunset, may be calculated using the function. Okay, where t is the number of days after March 21st, and 2 pi over 365t is expressed in radians. Okay, and again, all that means is that pi is equal to 180. Okay, and I would always change pi to be 180. Find the length of the day in Galway on June 5th, so 76 days after March 21st. So t here is equal to 76. Okay. So very simply, you have ft is equal to 12.25 plus 4.75 sine 2 times 180 over 365 times 76. Okay, and that's literally a job for the calculator. 4.75 sine, this would be handy if I did these answers out first, sorry. 2 times 180 over 365 times 76, and you will get to the nearest minute. So it was 16.837 and so on. Okay, so that's going to be 16 hours. Okay, and then so you want to put the decimal part of that, so 0.83726, whatever else was after it, and multiply that part by 60, and that will give you the amount of minutes. Okay, and to the nearest minute, it is 50 minutes. Okay, so simply just say 0.837 times 60, because it's that fraction of an hour. Okay, 16 hours, 50 minutes. All right, find a date on which the length of the day in Galway is approximately 15 hours. Okay, so my FT is 15 hours. So it's 15 is equal to 12.25 plus 4.75 sine 2 pi over 365 times t. Okay, and again, it is t I'm looking for here, and I'm going to just change it. I don't particularly like writing in red. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract, so minus 12.25 both sides. Okay, so I've got 15 minus 12.25, so I have 11 over 4. Okay, or if I get that, 2.75 is equal to 4.75 sine 2 pi over 365 t. Okay, then I want to get rid of the 4.75, so divide both sides by 4.75. Okay, I am going to leave this one as a fraction, so that's 11 over 19 is equal to 4.7, sorry, we don't have 4.75, sorry, we've just gotten rid of that, is equal to sine 2 pi over 365 t. Okay, and again, we've been doing this to get rid of the sine from this side, so to bring it over here, we go sine inverse. So sine inverse 11 over 19 is equal to 2 pi over 365 t. Okay, so sine 11 divided by 19. Okay, this is where it certainly is going to be easier to do this in degrees, and I'm not asked specifically to use either, so I would use degrees here. Okay, I have, do I have it as a fraction? I don't. Okay, so I have, you can leave it as sine inverse 11 over 19, or you can simply take 35.3765 is equal to 2. Now, I've used degrees, so this is degrees, so I'm going to use degrees here over 365t. The only way to do a question like this for a question like this to remain in radians would be to turn your calculator into radians, because it doesn't directly go to something that's on the table, if that makes sense. We generally would like to only use radians when you're on the table. Okay, so for these questions, you won't be asked to specifically put them in radians. Okay, and then simply to get t, I am saying 35.3765. I'm going to multiply by the 365, and I'm going to divide by 2 times 180. Okay, which is, technology is not working with me here very well, which is 360. Okay, and I get 35.8. Does it ask me specifically? Find a date on which the length of the day in Galway is approximately 15 hours. So it's 35.86 is equal to t. Okay, and I'm looking for a specific date, I believe. Sorry now. Okay, so I can round. I just wanted to check, was I allowed to round this? I am allowed to round this up. So to the nearest day, that's going to be 36 is equal to t. Okay, so the nearest day, obviously 35.86 will round up to 36 is equal to t. So I'm looking for 36 days. The way the question is worded is 36 days after June 5th. Sorry, after... or t is the number, sorry, after March 31st, apologies. Okay, so I'm looking for 36 days after March 31st, and just be careful here, 30 days has September, April, June and November, so that means March has 31 days. Okay, and then I'm talking another 5 days in April. Do I count March 1st? Number of days after March 1st. My logic is failing me here. Are we talking about the 5th or the 6th of April? 36 days after reading that question completely backwards. It's 36 days after March 21st, not March 1st. Apologies now. Sorry, after March 21st. So we've got 10 days left of March. And we don't have 5 days in April. We have a lot more than 5 days in April. Okay, just ignore that. Okay, we've got 10 days left in March, which means we've another 26 days after that. So let's go the 26th of April. Okay, and just be careful of those last little bits of logic. It might only be worth 2 or 3 marks. This will be worth your most marks finding T. Okay, but still, you don't want to leave out the last little bit at the end. Okay, highly advising going through this video, making sure you understand all the different elements of it. They do come up. They're nice questions when they do come up if you understand them. And if you don't, please